the number one question that I'm getting is like, what is everyone else doing? Um, it's such an unprecedented situation that people are looking anywhere for guidance on how to respond to it. And unfortunately, I have to tell everyone, well, everyone's asking that question because nobody knows what the heck to do, in this kind of situation. So there are no guidelines, there are no models you can look to. It really is going to push marketers and brands and executives to be very creative and hopefully very data driven in how they respond and what they do. Because there is nothing in any of our experience, no matter how old you are, like me, um, that you can turn to say, oh, this is like, it's not even really like 9/11 or like 2008. It's really totally different. Um, so then the next question after that is, okay, well, if I can't sort of look for those other models, should I be cutting my advertising? Um, and I think the answer is pretty obvious in any sort of um, industry that requires gathering of people: sports, live entertainment, restaurants, travel, all of those things. You either pull it completely or you dial it back, excuse me, and you change your messaging. And that's kind of the next thing, though. It's like, well, what kind of messaging do you do, in this time? And I thought like Coors did a really good job. They had planned a campaign, a little tongue-in-cheek campaign about being the official beer of working remotely. It seemed like it was going to be making fun of people saying they're working at home while they're watching the March Madness. Obviously, it pulled that completely the wrong tone and manner given the seriousness of the situation, and they were going to reach back into their advertising pool and just do more sort of general branding messages. Of course, Coors, a lot of their imagery is the mountains and mountain streams, not big crowds of people necessarily. So those kinds of images, I thought, made a lot of sense. The final piece of advice I give people is don't even don't even waste your time thinking about how can you stimulate demand in the short term. It's just not going to happen until people know how long they're going to be. For people who are laid off, until they know how long they're out of work, they are not going to spend a dime. Even those of us who are fortunate enough to still be getting a paycheck, it's like we're all going to be real cautious because we just have no idea. So rather than do that, you need to make decisions based on how do you want your brand to be perceived when this is over and when we come out of it. Do you want your brand to be perceived as a brand that was helpful, that was empathetic, that understood and tried to support its customers and the community? Or do you want to come across as a brand that was, being very opportunistic and still trying to squeeze money out of people? And if you take that longer term view and accept the idea that you can have, we're going to go through this revenue chasm for the next number of weeks. Just don't worry about that. But try to position yourself to be ready to capitalize when this is over. I expect there to be significant pent up demand, and be there and be the kind of brand people will turn to, when they're ready to start spending again.
Jim, tell us about some thoughts about media consumption. There's quite a lot going on now, and what you're seeing and some of the implications of the way that people are consuming.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, clearly, the Nielsen report that was out, I think last week, talked about a 60% increase in linear TV viewing, which is an astonishing number given that linear TV viewing has only been going down, down, down for the last, 5 or 10 years. But clearly, people are home, they're not commuting, so there's a whole lot more hours a day where they can potentially be consuming media. I do expect, this to be a big boon for the streaming services. I think that is an area where if people have been holding off, there aren't too many segments of consumers that have held off streaming. But any holdouts, this will be the time after they get tired of watching just linear TV and the old 250 channels, nothing to watch problem. That's not any better now than it was before the pandemic. They've heard from their friends, and there's certainly a lot of articles in the various press about here's what to watch while you're stuck at home. I think that will bring, first of all, any of those reluctant people, it will bring them into that trial of the streaming service. And certainly those of us who already stream, are going to be exploring probably deeper and more broadly across the content that the streaming services we already have can offer.
Jim, tell us sort of what the value is of data to advertisers in this current situation.
Yeah. Well, I think what data can tell us is, first of all, any changes in consumer behavior in the short term. People will be buying something, aside from the obvious, hygiene and disinfecting supplies and things. There will be some purchasing, so staying on top of those trends, which will again change day to day, the way everything is changing day to day. But then, back to that point of we will come out of this at some point. Demand will rebound at some point. So watching that and watching for the signs of that. So again, you are ready to, be there for your customers and show them that you are, able to meet their needs when they are ready to come back and purchase again.